Hello everyone, it's Omae and welcome back to the brand new video. Today we're going through level 31 plus Kizuna using none of the new units as your friend captain. I mean, it's a very simple formula. Nika Bunny captain, Saint Saturn sub, Kuma friend captain. That three gets around essentially every gimmick in both bosses. It's ridiculous. The only thing now is that we need a way to get around the orb damage reduction, so Atlas, and then the enemy defense up. So Chopper. So that's about it. Nustro just provides us a increased damage taken to the enemy over both stages, and that's really good just for extra damage, but also because Nika Bunny does provide a second conditional attack boost that they don't proc themselves, and that Nustro does allow you to proc that. So it's just giving you so much extra damage from Nustro, and that will go through immunities thanks to Nika Bunny's captain. And make sure that any character that you put as your support on Nika Bunny is an int unit. It doesn't matter who it is. I just put the Vegapunk there because everyone should have that unit by now. But any int units can go on Nika Bunny. Otherwise, you won't get the ability for everyone to go through enemy defensive effects. So only Nika Bunny themselves would be able to go through the barriers and the damage nullification if you don't put that support of Edison or any int unit on the Nika Bunny. And then Kuma as a friend unit is getting around the blowaway on the crew, and then also reducing bind on himself, which is really crucial because in both cases where we get bind in the boss fights, it's to either the top row or to the left column. So the friend unit is always getting binded, so it's quite important that he is removing it on himself. And then of course his special will remove it for the rest of the crew. And then we get buffs like color affinities, double color affinities, actually stackable color affinity, and then another color affinity from Kuma. And then also set target status to the enemy, two color affinities from Nika Bunny, a chain boundary from Saint Saturn. That is very important that that is procced on stage 2, because on the final stage the enemy interrupts against chain buffs, so you need to bring in chain buffs from stage 2. So Saint Saturn giving that massive 5-turn chain boundary is so invaluable. And of course, one of the variant is Psy, the other is Dex. So having at least one strength unit in Saint Saturn to do a lot of damage will help us make this team absolutely invincible, right? Because I think it can get to like level 100 with this team. It's just that broken in terms of the damage. So yeah, really nice stuff here. And since Chopper has the Sailor ability, he does allow his special to be activated twice in the quest. On this variant, we get the defense up on stage 2. On the other variant, defense up on stage 3. But this team is the exact same procedure for both variants. So we are using Chopper for the first time here on stage 2. He also provides us a nifty buff, very rare buff in the game, probably the most rare actually in modern day. It's essentially the carryover chain buff. So when we have our chain boundary and our chain growth rate here on stage 2, we hit a few perfects, we get to like a 8x chain. 20% I think of that is carried over to the final stage, so it essentially acts like a extra 1.5 chain boost, but you can also use other chain boosts. It's not the same effect, so this is a very helpful chain buff that Chopper is providing besides his defense up removal, which is really nice, right? And then you also get binded on the other variants, so we'd use Kuma here. And then we can also use one of our Nika Bunnies, because the other variants, there is going to be a a rainbow orb barrier. So Nika Bunny special allows us to essentially everyone to get around the barrier and just ignore it, right? Very powerful. And then we use the special of Nustro. This gives us the chain or the enemy increased damage taken over both stages. Besides that, I mean, we do get a full board of unfavorable orbs, but our Dex orbs are matching on Atlas and on Saturn, so we can just kind of use that to kill very easily. Nydato here is Dex, but on the other boss the enemy is Psy on stage 2, so in that case you just use Atlas to kill, right? Now the enemy will apply a territory, which is a 25% damage reduction. The way to get around this is to apply your own territory to the field. That will remove the enemy's one. So we do provide a territory from both Kuma and Nika Bunny, I believe, so that's really cool. So what we're going to do here is Oh yeah, I forgot to use Saturn on stage 2. Make sure you use Saturn on stage 2. For now, I'm just not going to activate him, but for your case, definitely use Saint Saturn always on stage 2. It doesn't really matter when you activate him. He can be either the first unit or the last unit for you to use their special for. But yeah, very important so you don't proc the interrupt of the enemy, right? So we're going to use EX Super of Kuma. That gives himself and Nika Bonnie a massive amount of cooldown. We can use his special. This will give you the bind reduction as well as a color affinity. Then we can use Chopper for the second time. And that'll give you a chain growth rate buff. And we still have this decent chain boost from stage 2. But remember, this would be way higher if you actually remembered to use Saturn on stage 2, because your chain would have gotten much higher. Then we can use our Atlas for the attack boost and removing the enemy orb-based damage reduction. Saint Saturn's EX Super. This gives us the advantageous class effect buff, which I think is actually quite useless here because we do not have any powerhouse units, so we don't have the advantageous class in the first place. So having an advantageous class buff is pretty useless in this circumstance. Then we can use our Nika Bonnie, and this will give both the delay conditional and the increased damage taken conditional. The reason they gave us both this time is because we used Nika Bonnie already on stage 2 for the first time. So on the third stage here, it counts as our second time activated, which gives us all of the buffs, which is really nice, right? We do have the enemy increased damage taken thanks to Nostro's delayed effect activation effect. Then we can use the EX Super of Nika Bonnie to give us a full board of matching orbs and a chain multiplicative buff. And then of course you would have a chain boundary effect if you remembered to activate Saint Saturn on stage 2. If you forget, don't like activate it on stage 3. The interrupt will it'll completely destroy you, right? And then at this point, we do have the effect to ignore enemy defensive effects on the Nika Bonnie, so we can just kill through this, right, very easily. So that's about it. Thank you guys for watching. Oh wait, no, we're still gonna go through the other variants. Bro, it's way too late for this, bro. Sorry, I've been team building all day. This Kizuna has been pretty fun so far. I'm gonna focus more on Super Boss tomorrow though, so I'm trying to pump out all these 10-star Kizuna teams, 1 versus alls right now. So you will see these 10-star Kizuna teams, the 1 versus alls, in quite quick succession. So hopefully that doesn't bother you guys too much. But yeah, I know people have been needing these teams without the Mars and Saturn friend units, so this is why I'm making this a priority. So the same thing here, Kuma friend captain. If you don't have the friend captain Kumas, but you have Kuma yourself, you can just put Kuma as your captain here, and then Bandai will just reflect your own Kuma. But there should be quite a decent amount of people running him since he is just so good for this piece of content, right? So yeah, you can see quite a lot of people have Kuma up, so that's nice. And then of course the same team, exact same thing, exact same order as well. And yeah, these teams don't require you to use units like Capone or Toki to get around the blowaway. And for those units, you need to use their special on stage 1 to get the blowaway resistance that you need for stage 2. But luckily, since we aren't using that, you don't have to worry about activating a special on stage 1, which definitely improves the reliability of the team, because there will be those cases where you forget to use a special on stage 1, because most teams and content really don't require you to use stage 1 specials. So yeah, definitely on the reliability side, this team is going to be really nice for that. But I have noticed, because I have been using the team with Toki on it, and I definitely make that mistake at least 3 times in my 30 runs. So what we're going to do here, as I said, we use the Chopper first, so the exact same thing here. Then the Kuma to remove the bind. But now I remember to use Saint Saturn for the chain boundary, right? He also does give the enemy increased damage taken here, but regardless, it's still helpful to use Nostro, because the main thing is that we have that effect on the final stage, the enemy increased damage taken, right? And then Nika Bonnie's first activation, we can now get around the orb barrier. And that's about it for stage 2, exact same thing as before. It's actually easier now since we don't get a full ward of unfavorable orbs, and I also remembered to use the chain boundary, which makes of course a much easier kill here. Now there's the Despair. Now this is where Nika Bunny shines the most. Of course, they do completely remove that. We can use our Atlas here first. I can't remember if we used Atlas first the last time. What you actually want to do is first use Nika Bunny, because Atlas also provides the effect to ignore enemy defensive effects, but only to herself. Nika Bunnies, as I said, since you have an in support on them and they're the captain, it provides it for everyone. So very important detail there actually. Make sure you first use the EX Super of Kuma, and then the EX Super of Nika Bunny. Then use their specials. Yada yada, color affinity. Also, Kuma heals a bunch, which allows you to get around the death hit. So you don't have to worry about getting a damage reduction effect. Just because of how much HP we have, we can like completely tank that damage raw. But if you want to be on the safer side, attach someone like Mr. 3 to one of your free spirit characters for the damage reduction of 50% if you're really paranoid, right? Nika Bunny, as I said, for the despair reduction, the 2 conditional boosts. But yeah, very important that you first use Nika Bunny, then Atlas, right? Don't make the mistake that I just did. One very strange thing here is that we didn't actually get the enemy increased damage taken from Nustro. Why did that happen? If someone can spot why, or if I can find why, and when I rewatch the video, I will put it in the comments. I think one of our other units might have given a delayed effect activation before I used Nustro, and that's why it's not activating. Because from what I'm seeing, I've met all the requirements for the increased damage taken to go through the immunities, and there's no special requirement on Nustro's special to get that function either. So there definitely is another delayed effect activation that's clashing here. But yeah, once again, make sure you first use Nika Bunny. Otherwise, only Atlas will be the one to evade enemy damage nullification or beneficial effects in general, right? So yeah, thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions about the teams, ask them down below. Very overkill teams can work dozens of levels, even possibly hundreds of levels, at least up to level 100, I believe. Since we do have strength stats in there, we have type advantage against the Dex boss, which is super valuable, right? But I'll see you guys in the next one. If you have any questions, drop them down below. Make sure to like, subscribe. We are just around the corner from 3k. I hit 1k back in like December of 2023. I hit 2k at the start of the month, and we're about to hit 3k. So that gap is crazy, going from 3-year gap essentially to only a 1-month gap between like big milestones. So thank you guys so much for the support. I will have videos for Super Boss as well as other 1 versus all teams if you don't have these units, so stay tuned if you don't have the teams, and also if you just need teams for Super Boss, because I know Super Boss is extremely daunting, easily the most daunting game mode in Treasure Cruise, especially if you're a new player. So I will have guides for those, so stay tuned. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace, and I'm out.